My name's Dan Hantak, and this is my story. I was raised going to church on Sundays with my family. When I was in 8th grade, I was confirmed and decided that it was now my decision to choose not to go to church anymore, so I stopped going. Fast forward to my freshman year of winter break, a new kid moved to Melville. He had been going to Poplar Bluff before that, and he asked us if we were interested in trying to smoke marijuana. So the next weekend we decided to try it again, and that time everything went great, honestly. I felt high, things were different, and felt weird, and I liked it, and so I decided to continue to try it more often. We started smoking every weekend or every other weekend, and that was the only thing we did. Things were normal when we were smoking, and a weekend was boring if we weren't. And a friend of mine brought prescription painkillers to school that were his brother's and asked me if I wanted to try them. It was probably one of the best feelings I've ever had, the best false feelings I've ever had in my life, so I continued to do it. And I did it so much that my health suffered. I started to feel that I was developing an ulcer in my stomach, so I stopped and I started to sell them. Junior year, I started to lay off the pills, but smoking had picked up a lot. Instead of going to the skate park or playing hockey or sports with my friends, we just smoked all the time, every day. One morning, a senior asked me if I wanted to smoke with him before school, and it didn't seem to be anything out of the ordinary, and an upperclassman had asked me to hang out with him, so of course I thought yeah. And it was raining, so we smoked in his car with the windows up, and we both had the same first block and walked into class together smelling so bad. The principal came down and asked if she could see me in the office. So I walked with her to the office and tried to play it off and act casually. She told me that they knew I was high and that if I admitted to it, I wouldn't get into any trouble. So of course I did. Well, I ended up getting suspended for 10 days, which turned into 180 days. But if I enrolled into a rehab program, my suspension could get taken down to being just for the last end of the semester and then throughout the summer, so I did. I was in rehab for 2 weeks and went through all the motions, pretended like I was great and really thought I was better. And then about 2 weeks after I got out of rehab, things got worse. I started to try to get in fights with my parents. I would spit on my parents, I would yell at them, call them names, cuss them out, do whatever it took to get out of the house so that I could go do drugs again. And then one day my mom came home and she told me she'd had it with me. She told my dad that she wasn't gonna come home until she didn't have to see me anymore, and for this I don't blame her because of the person that I'd become. I wasn't myself, and that the drugs had just taken over. So I looked at my dad and I said, I don't want to ruin your marriage, and I left. I stayed at my friend's house, and at the time it seemed like the best summer. No rules, no parents, just partying and trying to have as much fun as we possibly could. But I felt that something was missing. I didn't feel complete. I went to church and I brought my friend, and he fell asleep, but I really enjoyed it. So I told my mom I wanted to continue coming and I wanted to move back in. So I did. I moved back in and they started to drug test me at home, and I was staying clean for a while. But then when school started up again, I started to fall back into my old habits, and this time it was even worse. I think it was April 23rd. I was riding to school with the kid that always had taken me to school, and he pulled out weed and said, hey, you just got drug tested. Your parents aren't gonna drug test you again for probably another month. Why don't we smoke? So me being the idiot teenager that I was, I decided to give in. While pulling into the parking lot, a girl saw him smoking while driving his truck, and so she went and told on us. But I continued to deny it, and I went home with my mom, who'd stuck up for me in the principal's office. And when we got home, she told me, Dan, if you smoked, you need to admit it because the truth will set you free. I called my principal and told her that I smoked. So I went to my meeting with the superintendent, and they did tell me that I was going to be suspended for another 180 days. The rest of the school year, I wasn't allowed on Melville's property in like 250 yards, and I wasn't allowed to go to prom, senior picnic. I didn't get to walk at graduation, and all of this was terrible. I just remember thinking that how much of a letdown it was going to be to my entire family that they weren't going to get to see me walk at graduation. And so I decided in that moment that I was going to stop. I was never going to smoke weed again, whether it be for myself, for my parents, or for God. I couldn't do it anymore. And then a couple weeks later, I was at Chick-fil-A, and Tom came and sat down and started talking to us. And I thought my mom set me up, but she told me that she'd never talked to him in her life, and he kind of ignored her. But he looked me in the eye and said, hey, we're starting an internship program soon, you should do it. And I said, I don't know. And he said, no, you do know. You should do it because it'll be great for you. we left, and I decided that I was going to do it. So the first summer of the internship was great. I continued to stay clean, and things were going really well. But all I have to say about my entire story, to wrap it up, is that I would be nothing if it wasn't for God's grace. I have tons of friends still that are doing the same things that I was, that are in jail, that are addicted to drugs, that are struggling so hard. And if it wasn't for the grace of God from pulling me out of the muck, I would not be here sitting here. I wouldn't be leading great kids. I wouldn't be surrounded by amazing people, and I wouldn't have great leaders in my life to help me become the person that I am and the man that I am. So I'm so thankful for God, and without him I would be nothing.